Hello, I am Father Matt Addington, and I am one of the priests here at St. Francis Episcopal Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. And today I want to welcome you to a special series with our guest, Father Milton Williams, our rector. During this two-part series, we will have a conversation about Father Milton's upcoming sabbatical, followed by a time of question and answer. I want to thank you and thank especially Father Milton and welcome you here this day. And again, thank you for sharing your thoughts and your ideas about your upcoming sabbatical. And I'm really looking forward to our time here together. So, as we have said, you are making final preparations for your sabbatical that will begin on April 30th. How did this idea, this sabbatical, come about?
Well, I have a good friend, Father Steve Danzig, and I served together in Chicago. And that's how I got to know him. And then soon when I left Chicago, or Father Steve left Chicago, he went to a parish outside of Seattle. And I came here to Greensboro. And so, we communicate, we talk all the time on the phone. And so as a part of the conversation, this would have been in, I guess, the beginning of 19, or the late 2018. Father Steve told me he was getting ready to take a sabbatical. And I said, all right, so tell me, now I knew what a sabbatical was, or no. So I was asking him, so tell me more about that. And so Father Steve told me that he had applied for a Lilly grant. And for those of us in the church, especially clergy, we understand what the Lilly grant is, from Eli Lilly, the great philanthropic organization in Indianapolis.
Right.
So Father Steve had applied for a Lilly grant to cover his sabbatical. And the more he talked about the sabbatical that he was going to take, the more jealous I got. And I'm thinking, that's not fair. Now, you and I joke all the time. I joke about me having church envy.
Yeah, right.
I have church envy. Well, I can also have clergy envy too when I see that somebody's doing something that I haven't done yet. And so he began to unfold what that sabbatical was going to be like, and I thought, wow, I want to do that. And the more I thought about it, then I began to really spend time thinking about, praying about it, and consulting some of my other colleagues about it, even my spiritual director about it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so that's really how we all got started. Father Steve told me about his sabbatical, and he had been in, he arrived in Seattle really about the same time, because I attended his installation. I attended his installation in Seattle, and I was here. So I figured if he was taking a sabbatical with the time allotted that he had been in Seattle, about the same time I had been here in Greensboro, then I thought it was something well worth exploring.
Sure. I love that our church, our Episcopal church, has pieces of connection all over. And with that connection, I'm wondering why the sabbatical and why now?
Well, why the sabbatical? First, because I've never had one.
That's fair.
I've been ordained, I was ordained to the diaconate up until now, 26 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
26 years. And never having had a sabbatical. Now, historically, in the church, we're speaking specifically the Episcopal church, historically, sabbaticals were given every 7 years. Sabbatical, Sabbath, 7, rest, okay? But it just so happened, and it was, culturally speaking, in the Episcopal church, a priest would be somewhere long enough that on the 7th year, they would take a sabbatical.
Right.
But the way the church is current day, the vast majority of clergy never stayed anywhere 7 years. Right. I mean, the average, as you know, the average tenure of a priest at one location, at the same location, is anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Right. That's average. Mm-hmm. And so the church then began, the larger church began to reevaluate this time frame. Because if you are moving every 3 to 5 years, then you would never have been anywhere long enough to have a sabbatical. So what the church is saying now is that the cumulative years that you've worked, no matter what different locations you've been in, and they change it to about every 5 years instead of 7 years to help get people, because the church realized the importance of a sabbatical, of actually getting away. And so, so the sabbatical, and I've been here now 7 years. As a matter of fact, March 15, this past March 15, was my 7th year here. My sabbatical was scheduled to be last year, and that's another story, but COVID hit, of course. And then I changed the date, I postponed it a year. So that's why now.
Well, clearly, your time away makes me ask the question, well, where are you going? But the question that I have is more of a two-part question. What are some of the destinations on your sabbatical? And with these destinations, how long might your sabbatical be?
Okay. Let me start by saying how long the sabbatical will be. So a part of the grant is the Lilly Endowment Clergy Renewal Grant. Lilly Endowment Clergy Renewal Grant. And by the stipulation of the grant, the least amount of time an applicant can be away on sabbatical, the least amount of time is 3 months. That's the least amount of time. So I chose to take a 3-month sabbatical. Again, as you said, leaving on April 30th. So that gives me all of May, June, and July. First stop is Brazil. Then second stop is Ghana, West Africa. And third stop is South Africa. Brazil, Ghana, and South Africa.
So with these 3 stops, it seems like they are in a certain part of the world with a given group of people, and I'm wondering, were these stops chosen with a purpose, or is there a theme to your sabbatical? How do those 3 locations affect you individually and collectively?
First stop, Brazil. I visited Brazil. I was sent as a missionary to Brazil in 1985 when I was at the Baptist Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. So that was my first time to Brazil. And it was in 1985 that I was very fortunate, beyond measure. I was very fortunate to have been adopted into a family system where the father, I call him our dad, was a Baptist pastor, and he and his family he did his master's at Southwestern Seminary. So he came from Brazil, and his family took his family with him to the United States, got his MDiv, and then went back to Brazil. So I met this family in 1985, and that's my family, that's my Brazilian family. And so I visit them. The last time I was there to visit was 15, 14, 13. So I was there in 2013 was the last time I visited. I like to get there around every 10 years just to keep the physical connection, even though God knows before WhatsApp, you should have seen my telephone bill. And texting texting didn't exist, but emails didn't work. And so going back to Brazil is a way of visiting family, because I have a nephew that I've not yet met in person. The last time I was there, the daughter of my Brazilian niece, Beatrice is now 13 years old. When I saw her, she was just a little girl. So that's the project. Ghana. Ghana is a place that I wanted to visit. I don't know West Africa. I've never experienced West Africa. And so I chose Ghana. because, and I'll say more about this later, Ghana was the point by which Africans were shipped from the continent of Africa to the Americas. There at Cape Coast, and I think it's called the Castle of No Return. And so for years I had heard people talk about their pilgrimage. African American speak of their pilgrimage to Ghana to kind of experience what that was like. Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou is someone who I admire much, and Dr. Maya Angelou is one who in her younger years had actually lived in Ghana, and I would often hear her speak fondly of her time there in Ghana. I'm thinking, wow, that must be, I mean, she was an awesome person. Sure. And for this person to be so impressed with this place, I'm thinking, well, you know, and I've known other people that have gone to Ghana. South Africa, because I had classmates from when I was in seminary, at the Episcopal Seminary in Alexandria, at Virginia, who were South African. And so I have classmates whom I've not seen since we graduated. And so they are like extended brothers of mine. As a matter of fact, my mother would often send me back when I would go home from seminary had some leave. My mother would send like sweet potato pies back to my schoolmates from South Africa. So it'll be a way of joining them. And I had been to South Africa in 1997. I went on a mission group sponsored by the Diocese of Virginia when I was a priest in Virginia, Northern Virginia. And so once I got to South Africa and I said, I just want to go back. This is a place I have to go back. And so that's why Brazil to see family, West Africa, Ghana, because of the slave trade, and since I was already on the continent, it just made sense to me to go to South Africa.
Sure. One of the things that I am hearing that I think really matters for both you and the church is this idea of connection to people. Yeah. You spoke about your connection from someone in Seattle who gave you the idea, sabbatical.
Right.
Your connection to your family in Brazil.
Right.
Your connection to African Americans in Ghana, and your connection to classmates and other folk, other churches in South Africa. I'm wondering what you think you may benefit from your time on this sabbatical.
I'm about here in this very moment to embark upon a conversation with you that creates some anxiety for me, because I'm giving myself permission to say things to you and here in public that I don't think I've ever said before. And so I'm having, even now, to deal with my own anxiety. The theme of my sabbatical is racial identity, a journey of the heart. Racial identity, a journey of the heart. First of all, it's hard for me to begin to talk about sabbatical without thanking the people who were on my sabbatical committee, because I didn't do this by myself. Lynn Sandlin was the senior warden at that time. Dr. Shirley Smith, who was on the sabbatical. Kay Nichols was on my sabbatical committee, and Rick Sanders was on the committee. So I asked those four people to be on my committee. So much of what I'm saying now, they've heard it, because it took us a while to get the grant proposal done. So racial identity, a journey of the heart. I've said enough. People know that I'm proud to be a Virginian. I was born in 1961. I was born into a segregated society, a segregated commonwealth. I did not sit beside white children in public school until I was in the fourth grade. And as I've gotten older, I've had to reckon with the experiences of my childhood and how they have made me the person, how they have made me the black man that I am today. So I remember clearly in segregation. I mean, we had, in my hometown, there was Leggett department store, which is a sister of Belk here in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So there was Leggett. And I remember clearly, and Leggett was the place to go, just like Belk was the place to go here, right? So the restrooms were on the first floor. And remember, I'm a little boy, just a little boy. The restrooms are on the first floor. There were 3 restrooms at Leggett. And one said men, one said women, and the other said colored. And so as a child, when I said, Mommy, I need to go to the bathroom, because we lived in a small town of Suffolk, in Suffolk, Virginia, Mama knew the clerks in the store. And if she was distracted doing something, a clerk would take me down to the, Leggett had the first escalator. And I love to ride the escalator.
Sure.
I love to ride the escalator.
Sure.
So because they needed to make sure I was going to the right restroom. They were going to the right restroom. I remember going, my big mama Della, my paternal grandmother, lived in Southampton County, and her house, the big farmhouse, was set off from the road. And one day she sent me to the mailbox. She had a letter she wanted me to put in the post. And she said, so when the mailman comes, you just give him the letter. And I clearly remember walking down the dirt path to the road, waiting for the mailman to come. And my sense of oughtness said, wait till he does his job before you don't interrupt him. And so I gave him the letter. He was in the mail truck. And he asked me, he used the N word. N boy, what do you want? So I kind of turned around like, I don't know who he's. My big mama lives up in that house. I don't know where you live, but I don't know who you talking to. Really, it was that sense of there was a real disconnect between what he called me. It was a year we were integrated. And my mother, I was in the 4th grade, my mother was the first black president of that year of integration of the PTA. And so remember when they had, you're too young, they had programs you would have a Thanksgiving program, a Christmas program at the PTA. You had your assembly in school.
My mom taught kindergarten for 30 years.
I got you. You got it, right? So we were in the classroom. I clearly remember we called it cafeteria, because it was you had the stage and the gym cafeteria. And so we were gathered in the classroom directly across the hall, waiting to go in. And a classmate of mine had her sister, who was about maybe 2 years old, waiting with us in the class while the parents were there. And I was attempting to play, just kind of like I do with the children here nowadays, right? And her sister just wouldn't look at me, And so I said to her, why won't your sister talk to me? And she said, I hear it, God. She said, Mama and Daddy told us when we left the house not to talk to N people.
Oh, wow.
And again, my initial thought, so why is she not talking to me? I mean, it took me a while to make the connection. And I will tell you, social scientists, I've heard it said, that people's level of maturation stops at the point of trauma. Your maturation level stops at the point of trauma. So if you are traumatized at the age of, just think about these children in war right now.
Sure.
The people in war. They maturate. When I see these children, I'm thinking that's where they will emotionally stop And for me, I really did not know how I was affected by those moments in my childhood. Even though my dad gave me the talk. You know what the talk is.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who don't know what the talk is a conversation every parent, particularly father, has with their children, particularly their male children, their boy children. It is a talk to instruct them how to comport themselves and live and act and as black people in a white America.
Right.
And my father had these conversations with my brother and me over and over again about what to do, how to act, how to speak, how to walk, how to dress, so as not to offend white people, so that we don't become victimized by white people.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just what parents did. That's what parents do today. That's what black parents do today. But I really couldn't figure out, but I did know the impact, because it was a whole lot of do's and don'ts. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't. I wanted to go to the beach. We couldn't go to Virginia Beach. We couldn't go to Virginia Beach, so we had to go to Buffalo, okay, which was in Hampton. And I was in the fourth grade. I didn't know how traumatizing fourth grade was. So I asked this boy, white boy, where he went for the weekend, and he said he and his parents went to Nag's Head. I didn't know what Nag's Head was. And so I went home and I told my dad, I said, Dad, so-and-so went to Nag's Head. I want to go to Nag's Head. Can we go to Nag's Head? He says, boy, don't. He says, we can't go, and don't ask me anymore. And I said, why can't we go to Nag's Head? He says, if you go to Nag's Head, you won't come back. Nag's Head, North Carolina. He says, if you go to Nag's Head, you won't come back. See, what happened was, in the 60s, integration, black people couldn't go to Virginia Beach, and when they desegregated the beaches of Virginia Beach, then there was this white flight further south to Nag's Head. And that's when Nag's Head really exploded in development.
Sure.
That was a direct response to integration. But when your dad tells you you can't go somewhere, if you go, you might not come back. And it took me a while to figure out what he was talking about. My parents and they knew how far to go fishing, how far south not to go along the coast beyond Virginia Beach. They wouldn't go fishing. They were afraid of what they did. And these are just not impacts of my childhood. These are things that have happened to me recently. I'll tell this one story, and it's true. It was only 4 years ago. I was at a beach here in North Carolina, and I was preaching at a chapel at a beach in North Carolina. I'll just tell you, it was Topsail, so that you don't get confused. I was at North Topsail. There's an Episcopal chapel in North Topsail. Mm-hmm. And so I've been several times before, and there's a place I like to go eat. And so went to the beach, came home dressed up, and I'm sitting there at the bar where, as a single guy, I'm sitting at the bar. You get your drinks faster if you sit at the bar, right?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Right. So I'm sitting at the bar, having a wonderful time, had a great meal, and just chit-chatting, okay? And feeling good about myself. Had a couple cocktails, belly full of food. I'm feeling good about myself. I'm ready to go home and go to sleep, go back to the cottage at the beach, go to sleep. I walked out of the restaurant. This was 3 years ago. I walked out of the restaurant, walking to my car. A white truck passes by, and the person on the passenger side screams out the N-word as loud as they could. 3 years ago. It was as if I had been shot in the... I lost my breath. I could not breathe. It was like I had been shot, there was a big hole inside of my body. And if you don't believe this story is true, ask Linda Alder. because I had my phone with me, and for some reason, I called Linda. And I said, I can't even tell you what just happened to me. And I was frozen. I couldn't move, because I'm thinking, where's the truck? Where did they go? What are they going to do, right? Are they going to turn around and come back? What's going to happen? And then it started messing with my head, because I'm thinking, I was sitting in a bar with all these white people, having a wonderful time. Did they feel that same way about me? Was that a farce? Is that what they were thinking about me as I'm sitting at the table at the bar with them? It messed with me, and oh my God. That was only 3 years ago. So you see, I have all this stuff from my childhood, and it's just not, it didn't happen. These are not 60 stories.
Right.
I mean, I had a bishop tell me to my face. He said to me, you know what, and this was, oh God, this was in 96, 97. A bishop told me to my face, he says, you know, you are a good priest, and I would love to have you here in this diocese. He told me, I would love to have you in this diocese. He said, but unfortunately, I just don't have any black churches open. I mean, so when I say racial identity, a journey of the heart. Why Brazil? Because Brazil was one of the first places in my life where I landed in the country, the plane landed, and I was not a racial minority. I was not a racial minority, and I was in heaven because I looked like everybody else, and everybody else looked like me. I was no longer a racial minority. When I went to South Africa, I got to South Africa, and in my crazy way, I invited myself into a funeral. I invited myself to a funeral.
We do them well.
We do them well. I invited myself to a funeral. I didn't know at the time that it was a funeral of a colored person. It was not the funeral of a white person. It was not the funeral of a black person. It was a funeral of a colored person. And I got into this church filled with colored people. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my whole family is here. Oh my God, how did everybody get from Southampton County down here? I mean, everybody was looking like me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, can we just kind of hang out at the funeral for a while? I swear that. And I believe you. And it was that sense of freedom that I had finally come to a place where I belong. And I don't have to question. I don't have to question the step that I make or where I eat or what are they thinking about me. The truest sense of being free. When I go to Brazil, I am free. I have family in Cuba. And I went to visit my godson before they immigrated to the United States. I went to visit my godson in the year 2000. I met the bishop of Cuba. Had a wonderful time. We sat at the hotel and drank rum all day. And the bishop said to me, I had never met this man before. The bishop said to me, he says, Father, he says, you know, here in Cuba, all roots go back to Africa. A white man said to me, here in Cuba, all roots go back to Africa. Can you imagine the diocesan bishop of North Carolina saying to our diocesan convention, here in North Carolina, all roots go back to Africa. Wow. No. But do you know what? So I'm thinking, here's a white man who recognizes the import of a people and culture and claims it as a part of his, a white man claims Africa as a part of his own his own personal identity. Because he knows apart from Africa, he wouldn't be the person he is today. He wouldn't eat the food he eats. He wouldn't enjoy the music he enjoys. He wouldn't enjoy the spirit apart from that,
who he is.
He wouldn't, as a white man, he wouldn't be who he was if it were not for Africa. Sure. And when I heard the bishop say that, I thought, oh my God, I want to live in Cuba.
You get that?
I want to live in Cuba. I mean, so that's the long narrative, and I tell this story now because I must confess it is only now that I'm ready to tell the story. I've not been ready before because my father would be afraid for me to tell the story. Because to tell the story is to make me vulnerable. And my father would not have his son vulnerable. My father seeks in all manner of things to protect his son because he loves his children. And my dad is afraid that if I speak these words in front of white people, then somehow or another it gives them some way of hurting me. But I have come to understand as I've gotten older that I have an earthly father, but I also have a heavenly father. And it is God's love for me that sets me free to speak my truth and to share my truth and not be afraid.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for your openness, for your vulnerability. I'm reminded of a time when I was at St. Mark's and Reverend Sarah went on one of her sabbaticals, and Bishop Greg, who was filling in, he came to me as sort of, I wasn't ordained, but he came to me as sort of the highest level of theological education at St. Mark's. And he said something to me that I found deeply moving and very true. He told me, Bishop Greg said, when Sarah returns, she will not be the same. You will not be the same when you return. Bishop Greg went on to say, when Sarah returns, you, Matt, I will not be the same. St. Francis will not be the same. And he said that, and I thought, that's probably, number one, coming from Bishop Greg, that's probably deeply profound.
I pay homage to Bishop Greg.
Yes. But he spoke truth on that day to me and to the people of St. Mark's. And upon Sarah's returning, we learned very quickly he was right. She was not the same. We were not the same. In deep and meaningful and life-giving ways, St. Mark's shifted gears and was able to do things that little church on the hill could have never imagined that it was able to do. Hearing your story gives me that same sense. You will not be the same. We will not be the same. And I'm so excited for you to go. We are so excited for you to go and look forward to what will come upon your return. Father Milton, again, thank you for sharing with us today your story. But not only your story, how your story will continue as a journey of the heart. I look forward to hearing about what your sabbatical has meant to you on your return. And know this. Know that you are loved. This place loves you in the best ways that we can. Know that we are excited for you, and know that we will pray for you daily, in the best ways we know how, as you are away, because we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please stay tuned for the second part in our series. The next part will be a time of question and answer with Father Milton. We hope you will join us as you are able. Goodbye for now.